Once again, it's Michael James and another edition of the Live from the Heartland show. We're up here in Chicago's 49th Ward at the James Fort. We are recording this on Memorial Day for the week of June 1st. And we have three really interesting guests today. We're going to do a little bit of photography, music, sports, and a lot of things in between. We're going to have Dave Specter, who's been with Delmark Records for 30 years, has a new photo show opening up, and is also very much involved with the wonderful club in Evanston called Space. We're going to have Nicholas Barron, an artist here in Rogers Park, who has done some wonderful paintings and does some beautiful music. And then we're going to round out the show with a little bit of sports from our cousin Adam James out there in California. On a sad note, I want to remind people that Stuart Rosenberg, a gifted musician, a lifelong artist, celebrated band leader, has passed. We've known Stuart for a long time. He used to have a radio show on WLUW. Klezmer bands, played at the Heartland, played with people all over the city. He had a lot of gifts, had a great spirit. He enriched us all. He had a keen eye for connections, spent decades bringing people together, bandmates, collaborators, and we miss him. And we're really sorry. And we would thank Evanston Roundtable, the newspaper, for some nice information about Stuart in the obituary. Also, I noticed that Spider John Kerner died. And I remember back to my early days of remembering getting into folk music and stuff. And I had an album that included Spider John Kerner, Snaker Dave Ray, and Tony Little Son Glover. We used to have Snaker Dave come to the Heartland and play a number of times. And I also did meet Spider John up in Cambridge one year when he was playing there. We're very sorry about his passing. On good things. Well, I'm not sure it's good or bad, but I put it under good because Trump has told donors he will crush pro-Palestinian protests and deport demonstrators. And I figure that is a good thing for people who want to protect democracy, because maybe some people who are doubting their vote for Biden will see that it's really important to cast their vote in that direction this time. Another good thing, I think, for those of us who are critical of the past president, he loudly was heckled and booed at a Libertarian National Convention. So that's a little bit of information on that guy and the election. Another bad thing was in the news today, and I'm sure many of you will have seen it already or will see it, that there was a landslide in Papua New Guinea. Over 2,000 people are believed dead. That's an estimate from the UN. On another thing, I read that down in Louisiana, which has been losing a lot of its coastal territory, they had a real good program under a Democratic governor to deal with that. The new Republican governor wants to cut that program and basically cut back efforts to protect the coastline in Louisiana. You've got to all remember that climate change is a real thing, that we have to act now to protect things for the future, not only for ourselves, but those who will follow us. That is a responsibility that we must embrace and actively work on making happen. Back on the labor front, we did lose a vote in the election at Mercedes in Mississippi. And on the other side of things, the labor board at the University of California has rejected a bid to end by the administration of the universities, the Cal State system, to end a student strike over a crackdown on pro-Palestinian protests. And last week, we had a very interesting guest. We went the whole almost an hour long with Kathy Osberger. And I had heard about her that she had a new book out, and the book is called I Surrender, a memoir of Chile's dictatorship, 1975. And she talked about living with nuns down there, went down to teach after she graduated from Notre Dame, learned that they were hiding people who were being sought after by the dictator Pinochet. She was actually blindfolded, driven around, threatened, etc. It was a really good report, and I encourage people to look at it. You can go to youtube.com/heartlandmedia, and you will find it. All right, we're going to take a musical break. We're going to hear a little bit of music from Dave Specter, and we'll be right back with Dave Specter. The one and only Dave Specter. He's a man that's had a huge footprint on the music scene here in Chicago and on the North Shore. He is a co-partner in Space, a wonderful music club in Evanston. He has 30 years of recording under his belt at the one and only Delmark. We're really glad to have him. Good afternoon to you, Dave.
Hey, good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it's been a long time coming. I've heard about you for a long time, and Lynn Orman, our music producer, always speaks very highly. And I think tried to get me to come meet you when I was there for the Mo Better Brown show. Uh, but as I recall, I got out of there in a hurry for some reason. But that was a great show. In fact, I've been to a few shows up there. Another one was with Lori Bell and James Cotton. I really had a great time, and I want to commend you on putting together a music club and keeping it going for 16 years.
Well, thanks. Appreciate that.
How about telling us a little bit about your time at Delmark and your recording there? 30 years is a long haul on the same label.
Yeah, it's actually been longer. I signed with Delmark in 1990. So what is that? 34 years ago, and I did my first record came out in 1991. I actually have a history with Delmark and the Jazz Record Mark before that, because when I left college in Champaign to come back to Chicago to be a blues musician, I got a job at Delmark when they were on Lincoln Avenue in Lincoln Square as their shipping clerk, and that was in 1985. And I also worked part-time at the store, the Jazz Record Mark down on Grand Avenue. So I got to know Bob Kester, and I worked there for less than a year and started playing on the blues scene. I was playing on the blues scene then. And then when I started my own band in 1989, I approached Bob and said, "Hey, man, I want you to come out and hear my band with this singer that I know you like, Barkin' Bill Smith," who Bob had heard many times over the years. And Bob came and heard us and signed us. So that's how it started.
Ah, nice. You know, I got to tell you a little story about the Jazz Record Mart. When I was a sophomore at Lake Forest College, I was doing a paper for sociology on the socialization of the jazz, of Black jazz musicians. And I went to the Jazz Record Mart, and I remember meeting Mike Bloomfield and Charlie Musselwhite, who were hanging around there playing then. You know, I was just a kid. And then I did bring Bloomfield and some other musicians up to Lake Forest. Anyhow, enough of that. We did have Bob Kestner on the show way back. Tell me about, you've got a double album celebrating your 30 years at Delmark.
Yeah, I believe in 2021, my double live album came out. It's called Six String Soul, 30 Years on Delmark, and it's a retrospective of a lot of different recordings I've done with a lot of different people, from Jimmy Johnson to Otis Clay to Jack McDuff, speaking of jazz, and Steve Freund and many others who I've collaborated with on my recordings over the years. And it came out on vinyl and CD.
Tell me a little bit about how you got into being a musician, and particularly a blues musician.
I come from a very musical family. I grew up in Hollywood Park, near Northeastern, around Bryn Mawr and Kimball. My older brother, who's almost 70 now, used to go hear Howlin' Wolf and Muddy and tell me about him. And my parents loved music. My mom was a classical pianist. They listened to the Midnight Special on WFMT, and listen to people like Big Bill Broonzy and Leadbelly. And I remember hearing Muddy Waters. I don't know if it was on the Midnight Special or on one of my brother's records, but you know, I'd been listening to the Stones and the Beatles and the Grateful Dead and the Allman Brothers. When I heard Muddy, I was like, this is blowing my mind. It makes those other bands sound like kids, and it just spoke to me and moved me in a very powerful way. I went down to Champaign for college, which is pretty much when I started playing guitar. And, you know, I fell in love with T-Bone Walker and Magic Sam and Freddie King and Otis Rush. And then I started seeing a lot of these people in Champaign or at places like Biddy Mulligan's, which would let me in with my fake ID. And I just immersed myself in the Chicago blues scene and started playing with people like Sam Lay and Hubert Sumlin when I was really young. Jimmy Johnson kind of took me under his wing. Steve Freund who you might be familiar with, who was Sunnyland Slim's guitar player, along with the guitarist for Coco Taylor and Otis Rush and many others, was kind of my mentor. He taught me a lot. He took me on the road with him. Sam Lake took me on the road with Hubert Sumlin when I was like 22. So I dove in as a sideman. I got my first big road gig was with Sun Seals. When I was like 25, I was with Sun for almost 2 years. We played East Coast a lot, played New York City a lot, Boston. And then I decided to start my own band in '89. And that's basically the beginning of it.
You still got that band going?
I do. Still have a band. We're still playing around town. We just got back from a sweet little tour of Spain. And right after we got back from Spain, we had a date at Space and recorded it. And we were working on, I'm working on the mixes right now. We have 15 tracks. So it might be another double album. We got a lot of music, and I'm real happy with the live recording.
Nice. Well, you mentioned Space, and I mentioned it at the intro. Why don't you talk a little bit about it? I first learned about it from the late, great Stuart Rosenberg, and he told me that it was happening, and it took a long time for me to go there, but I have been up there a few times and really have enjoyed it. It's pretty impressive. I drive by it almost every day when I go to the Y up there. And why don't you tell a little bit about how it came to be, how a group of musicians came together? You started a studio, you started a club, and the kind of things that have gone on there.
So we've been open for 16 years now. And I'd say starting about 18 years ago, I used to meet with some of my Evanston friends, including Craig Golden, who's kind of the main man behind Space, and also has the Salt Shed and Thalia Hall and Promontory. But I've known Craig since college, and Craig and Stuart and I used to meet in Evanston pretty regularly. I think it was on Thursday nights, and just kind of talk about this dream of having a club and a studio and a restaurant. And Craig bought the building. I think it was on auction, and he lives right around the corner in Evanston. I've always lived in the city, and that's how it started. And Stuart, it had the name Space, I think, from a previous venue that he ran for a short while. I think it was a little storefront or a little kind of hidden alleyway club. And Space stands for the Society for the Preservation of Arts and Culture in Evanston. Or as a DJ on WNUR called it, Dave, what's that place called? The Society for the Prevention of Arts and Culture in Evanston? I like that. But no, we are proud of what we do, and, proud of how much the community has embraced the venue, and people come from really all over the country sometimes to shows there.
What are some of the highlights, some of the acts that you really stood out for you, or particular shows?
Yeah, there have been so many.
That's why I put you on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, some of my favorites were Alan Toussaint, the first time he played for us. I mean, that made me cry. It was so powerful. It was really like having musical royalty in the house.
Oh, yeah.
Richard Thompson blew my mind having him. When we were planning the club, we had like this list of like dream musicians, and we just had John Hyatt for 3 nights just within the last month. And he was on the short list of like people we could only dream about having. We just had him for 3 nights in a row. But I'm really proud of a lot of the blues stuff that I helped book or book directly. People like Pine Top, Lonnie Brooks, Magic Slim, Hubert Sumlin, Jimmy Dawkins, Jimmy Johnson. We've pretty much had a who's who of Chicago blues, and I really love New Orleans music. We've, my phone ringer is a ringtone from the Meters. We've had George Porter many times. We've had Aaron Neville. We've had Leo Nocentelli. We've had Ivan Neville's band, Dumpster Funk. So, I love New Orleans R&B. And then we've also had a lot of great jazz. I know you mentioned the Jazz Record Mart. We've had Chick Corea. We've had Ramsey Lewis, John Schofield, Joe Lovano. so many heavyweight jazz cats. It's been wonderful.
That's a great list. I mean, I got to say, I did see Alan Toussaint once, along with Irma Thomas, on a boat going up the Mississippi during the Jazz and Heritage Festival. And he is one of my favorites. But all those people you mentioned, almost all of them I know and enjoy and have records from some of them. What do you got coming up that people should know about on the music front up there at Space? I understand that you play often on Monday nights during your Blues Monday shows. Is that a true thing?
Well, what I do and have been doing for a number of years is helping to curate a monthly Blue Monday series. It's usually one Monday a month, or sometimes we do it on a Tuesday. But our calendar has been so full lately with national touring acts that we haven't had it quite as regularly as we used to. We do have a Blue Monday coming up with Stephen Hull, who's a really fine younger up and coming blues man. You know, it encourages me to see younger musicians who are embracing this music and playing it the right way. There aren't a lot of them. You know, I've been spoiled, man. I came up on the blues scene where you could go hear Otis Rush and Dave Myers and Lewis Myers and Coco and Junior and almost every night of the week. And it's not even close to being anything like that right now. So we do have some younger players like Stephen Hull coming up on a Blue Monday, and a really fine young piano player named Ben Levin. He's coming up in August. We're doing a lot of outdoor summer festivals, including the first, hopefully, annual Evanston Folk Fest in early September, where we have some blues. We have John Tavius Willis on that. We have Corky Siegel on that. And then we do the Out of Space series this summer, which we usually do at the Canal Shores Public Golf Course in Evanston. They're doing a little construction this summer, so we're doing it in Skokie this year, and we have people like Courtney Barnett, St. Paul and the Broken Bones. Everything is easily found at evanstonspace.com.
Speaking of evanstonspace.com, I have 3 different websites for you. evanstonspace.com, bluesfromtheinsideout.com, and Dave Specter, that's ER.com. All good, and people should go take a look. One of the things that really rang a bell with me is you seem to be a guy who at some point started carrying a camera with him. And that's true in my own life. And I do have pictures back to 1960. I have one of Muddy Waters at a place called the Fat Black Pussycat with James Cotton. I'll send you a copy of it. But you've been taking pictures, and I understand that a lot of them you've taken at Space, but you now have a show that's going up. And in fact, it opens on June 1st, the night that this show will air on WLUW. It will have already aired on Lumpin' Radio, and it'll be up on YouTube. So people could go see some of your photographs. Tell us about you, a camera, the pictures you take, and what's going on with all of them together.
Yeah, thank you. I've been in love with photography since I was a kid. It runs in my family. My dad was a photographer. My older brother. I remember taking my Olympus OM1 SLR to see the Grateful Dead at the Uptown, I think in 1978, and took pictures there, and used to shoot concerts when I was in high school. I learned how to use the darkroom, and I kind of gave it up between my love for basketball and my love for blues. Time to pursue photography until the iPhones and smartphones came out with amazing cameras. And really got into taking photographs of musicians, but realized that you really can't capture great shots, especially from far away, zooming in on musicians with the phone. So a couple of years ago, I stepped up my game and bought a camera and started shooting, a lot of shows. I have great access at Space. I also shoot at Legends and Fitzgerald's. And, whenever I go to the Green Mill, I try to shoot, bring a camera. And I decided to put together an exhibit of my photographs. And this exhibit is going to feature pretty much all blues and jazz people. A lot of black and whites, which I really love. I love black and white photography. And they're going to be over 30 prints, mostly 18 by 24s, a couple really big ones, and some 8 by 10s as well. You mentioned Maurice Mo Better Brown. He's in the show. I got a great
Nice.
black and white shot of him. A lot of Delmark artists like Jimmy Burns and Willie Buck and Mike Wheeler and Cheryl Youngblood. Jazz musicians like Greg Ward and John Schofield. It's a pretty eclectic show, and I'm really excited for people to see my work.
Dave Specter, did you shoot this mostly on film, or is there some digital too?
Right now, I'm only shooting digital. Yeah, it's funny. A couple of younger people in their 20s that work at Space and work at our restaurant union are into film photography. You know, it's
All the
making a
young
comeback.
people. My kid is harassing me all the time. Dad, just shoot the film, don't use the digital.
Yeah,
I like digital, I got to tell you. Bam, 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 bam.
yeah. You know, digital photography is it's, you know, I guess you draw a correlation between listening to CDs or listening to vinyl. You know, taking digital or shooting film. There are some definite advantages to shooting film, but in terms of ease, and man, I don't miss the smell of a darkroom. I'll tell you that.
Well, this exhibit's going to be up at Delmark Records, and tell people where that is and how long it will be up, because it's really something people should see.
Yeah, Delmark Records is near Irving Park in Western at 4121 North Rockwell. 4121 North Rockwell. And they have been using their front hallway space as a gallery. And I think this is the 6th or 7th or 8th gallery show. A great photographer named Michael Jackson, who also writes for Downbeat, just had an exhibit up of his jazz shots. And it opens June 1st. The opening party is this Saturday night from 5 to 8. And the show will run throughout the summer. I think it ends on September 1st. So if you pop in the studio, you know, during, you know, regular business hours, so to speak, and somebody's there, they'll let you in and let you have a look.
Dave Specter, it's great talking to you. Let me throw this at you. Any advice or information for music lovers in general and young musicians coming on up?
Advice for younger musicians: just immerse yourself in as much of the music you love as you can. Listen to the recordings, study the recordings, see as much live music as you can. Go back and discover the roots of the music that you love. And, you know, just play from your heart. And one of the greatest pieces of advice any musician ever gave me, and a number of the older blues guys told me this, is take your time. There's so much blues now that involves this flashy, quote unquote, shredding bullshit that to me is, you know, it's all about histrionics, and it doesn't speak to my soul. I like the whole point of the blues is the feeling and the soulfulness. It's really hard for me to hear that when somebody's playing 80 miles an hour, you know? So take your time, any kind of music, jazz, blues.
Well, Dave Specter, it's really nice talking to you, and I'll probably see you at your opening on Saturday night. That would be, if people are listening on WLUW, that's tonight. But anyhow, June 1st at Delmark Records is the opening of the show. We'll see you there, or we'll see you at Space, and we'll play one of your tunes as we go out. Look forward to meeting you in person, brother.
Right on. Thanks for having me on. Good talking to you.
Okay, and everybody stay tuned here on the left end of your dial. We'll be right back with more Live from the Heartland for the week of June 1st in the year 2024. Hey, we're back with more Live from the Heartland for the week of June 1st, and we are recording it a few days early on Memorial Day. And the YMCA is closed today, but most mornings I'm driving up along Sheridan Road and then around up there the borderline between Evanston and Chicago. I make a turn. I can see the beautiful lake, but also on my right is a studio there, and with an artwork out in front and big signs. And every once in a while, there's a guy standing out there. And I was driving by the other day, and lo and behold, who was there but the one and only Nicholas Barron. Nicholas has been on this show before, both about his artwork, about his music, and it was great to stop and talk to you. And I'm glad I talked you into coming on the show. So, how are you doing today?
Doing great today. Excited to be with you. That was awesome seeing you the other day, driving by. You stopped.
Yeah, I did. I pulled over. It was fun. I didn't get out of the car, but I will soon. Tell us a little bit about your studio, and you're having a studio, out in the open, for people to stop by. I know, I do that with my photography on Sundays,
Yes.
and it can lead to great things. Like in this case, you were out there, and it led
Yep.
to me stopping and talking to you. Talk about it.
Well, I think the nature of where I've come from is street art and street music, generally speaking. And I think the idea of being public art or being outside and not it's sort of exposing and showing spontaneity and color and personality and so I've had the space for 5 years. I live in the building. I have a water view, which is life changing. Sort of a metaphor. I have a water view. I started painting the wall in the alley about 2 or 3 years ago, sort of piecemeal, and it's kind of grown. Someone tagged me with a big black heart, strangely enough, and I started to add words and colors. It's become kind of a signature piece for me in Rogers Park. And then also because I have a gallery which opened a year ago, so now I have the studio with 2 rooms where where the elves make the paintings, so to speak, and then I bring them. We bring them over to the gallery, and then they mature and and I show them the gallery, and the gallery's changed my life because it's right across from the lake. So there's the water. I mean, it's just the light is beautiful. It's just incredible. I'm very, very grateful and blessed. And I kind of draw on everything. Literally, I find chairs and tables, and I obviously do fine art on canvas and stuff, and then wood. But I do tables and guitars and clothing.
I was reading about, there was a story on you in the Loyola Phoenix, and they talked about you drawing and doing art on your clothes. You do that still?
Well, you know what? Normally I'd be wearing a black shirt, which actually I have in the background with paint all over. I wear clothes. I love black gesso. So painting on my clothes and my shoes. And I call it abstractifying or baronizing my clothes. So yeah, everywhere I go, it's just kind of, it's my signature thing. Sometimes people buy the shirts right off me or, right off my back.
Well, you have a show coming up. That's one of the things we want to make sure we get in.
Yep.
So why don't you tell us where it's going to be and
Okay.
when?
So in the historic Flatiron Building in Wicker Park, legendary space on the second floor. It's called LMN, which is Laura May Noble, LMN/Wedge Gallery in the Flatiron Building, 1579 North Milwaukee Avenue.
Right at North.
June 7th, Friday, June 7th, 6 to 10. That's the official opening. Though I have been there on Saturdays from 1 to 6 and playing music literally with a speaker out into the street, bringing people in and sold 5 paintings already just from doing that. There's 60 paintings in the show. And then in my gallery and studio in Rogers Park, I probably have another 120 or 30. So I'm painting a lot. Yeah.
Well, one of the paintings that you did was about George Floyd. Tell us the story about what happened to that painting.
So I did 2 paintings the day that George Floyd was murdered. I want to be clear about that. He was murdered. And so it was very upsetting, obviously. And I just did a painting. And honestly, it totally in my style, but something I've never done before. I mean, the painting it's completely its own thing. I ended up, a cultural anthropologist was recording artists and people having their experiences during the pandemic and came to my studio. And painting happened to be sitting there, and she said, "What is that?" I said, "That's a painting of George Floyd." Long story short, over a 2-year period, they bought the painting. They had the painting in their collection for the pandemic series. Then a new board came on the Field Museum, and they had all this, interviews with me and all my whole archival history of everything. And they decided because I was white that they couldn't have a painting of George Floyd by a white artist, which is I had obviously mixed feelings about. And long story short, last September, a Black couple came in who live across the street and bought the painting from me. So I was returned to me by the Field Museum. And then a couple months later, this beautiful couple came in and, were awestruck by it. And I sold it to them. And it's across the street now. And they're
And you
condominiums.
made a lot more money than you had.
I made a lot more money and validated. And I really haven't talked about it much. And I kind of, I've kind of wanted to, because I didn't do the painting. They weren't looking for a George Floyd painting. They were they just, that was not the goal. I just had happened to do the painting because I'm an artist, and emotionally it struck, and that's what artists do. And, there's language in the painting, and there's a lot of stuff going on, narratively.
Well, Nicholas Barron, why don't you tell us a little bit how you got into being an artist? Because I know you come from a line of artists.
Yeah, my dad, William C. Barron, he was Roy Lichtenstein's assistant professor at Rutgers, which is, just this incredible story. He babysat his kids. He was assistant professor. And then within 1 year was discovered and became the pop icon of the 60s. My dad stayed friends with him. And, my dad was too humble. He never really asked for his help too much. My dad did experimental paintings and abstract paintings. And I grew up in Marblehead, Massachusetts, with big metal sculptures in the front yard and abstract paintings all over the walls. Now both my sisters are artists full time. I'm an artist full time as well as a musician. And he just he would sit with me and just talk to me about art and being an artist and form and composition, and changed my life. Yeah.
You do some wonderful work. I got to say, I really like it. Let me ask you to share with our listeners and our viewers where your studio and your gallery are located.
So they're 7759 and 7765. They're 2 doors apart, on Sheridan Road, right before the turn into Evanston. You can't miss it. You go past Howard, you go around the turn. I'm right in the alley. That's also where the big mural I did is. And the gallery, I'm usually open Wednesday through Sunday, 1 to 5. And I'm usually, when it's nice out, I'm either painting in the alley, or, I have painted furniture out in front of the studio with a painting I put against the pole. I just, whatever to do to get, it's a spectacle to get people to stop and, and look at my work, and often buy my work, which is pretty miraculous.
It worked for me. And
it worked for you, man. I'm
but the other
friends
thing,
for a long time.
Tell people where you're playing, because last time you were on the show, and you've been on a couple of times, both in the WLUW studios downtown and back in the Heartland Cafe days, you were on the show then too. And usually it was playing music. Why don't you just tell people right now where some of your music gigs are going to be in the next period of time?
Sure. Actually, June 2nd, so this will be the day after this interview airs, I'm playing at Simon's, which is a wonderful place in Andersonville, 5210 Clark. They have some of the best bands in Chicago play there. It's with my band, Nicholas Barron and the Galaxy 5. So members of my band Swimmer, that was a pretty big band in the 90s in the Elbow Room. It's those guys. It's all original music generally. And it's, I call it blues and soul, funk and roll. It's improv, it's crazy words, it's blues, it's soulful, it's jazz, pretty amazing players. So yeah, that's this Sunday. And then June 30th, Sunday, June 30th, I'm playing at Tiny Tap on the Riverwalk 6 to 8. So that's the other one in June. Yeah.
Nicholas Barron, while I got you here, why don't you tell people your email and your website?
Email, sure. It's Birdie Barron, BIRDIE, last name Barron, BARRON @gmail, birdiebarron@gmail.com.
And you got a website?
Website is barronmindstudio.com. Barronmind, BARRONMIND studio.com. Yep.
And what's your next piece of art going to be about? You got anything on your mind?
Well, interestingly enough, I just got a commission, just completed it. I do these black and white, basically drawings on canvas of blues artists that incorporate words and my doodling and abstract stuff. But someone just commissioned me to do floral, botanicals, gardening stuff. So I just started doing a whole bunch of my version of almost like Cy Twombly meets Keith Haring. It's me, but so I'm doing black and white. I'm doing very abstract, colorful botanical stuff mixed with words as well. And that's kind of where I'm at this very moment. But everything is usually spontaneous and based on, the moment and so forth.
Well, you're a busy guy. What do you do when you're not doing music or artwork?
I hang out with my best friend, my girlfriend, my partner, Daisy, where I am right now. And yeah, just try to walk. I would see you at the YMCA, right? That's where I'd see you. Try to walk, ride my bike, I've been going in the water lately. It's actually been not too bad. It's like 60, maybe 50 something. Wakes you up.
Yeah, no, the swimming in the lake is a great thing. I'm about to
It's good.
start again. I used
It's
to
good.
go in once, at least one time every month. But
Oh yeah.
I haven't done that for a few years.
Yeah. It wakes your whole nervous system. It calms it down in a way, but it's great. Yeah.
Nick, you got any advice for aspiring young artists?
Yeah. Wow. Well, so I call being an artist the divine affliction. Because if you're an artist, it's an affliction. It's not something you can help. It's not about money. It's not about the outcome. Focus on the process. Focus on rendering things and basically loving, and not thinking about outcome. We're so stuck in fame and ideas of things that if you just follow your heart and your dreams and the love of what you're doing, everything else is secondary to that. That's the best advice I can give.
You're a hell of a guy. I'm glad you're my friend, and I will come see you at your studio and gallery before you know it. The next couple.
I can't wait. I love you. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Hal.
Everybody else, stay tuned here on the left end of your dial, or however you're getting this show. And we're going to play a little of Nicholas's tunes. I'm not sure which one, but we'll be right back with more Live from the Heartland. Don't go anywhere else. It is the time to go to the back page of the newspapers, which would be our sports section. And once again, we have the one and only my cousin, Adam James, used to play football at Northwestern, working in some film stuff, and a keen eye on all things sport. Hello, Adam. How's it going out there in the California area?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you today? And everybody in Heartland, California.
It's pretty good. We're in Rogers Park, and it's kind of gray out here. It's not a kind of a grilling Memorial Day, but we're having a good time. There's more sports to watch on TV later today, because I was so excited that I thought the Northwestern women's lacrosse team had, for the second year in a row, won the lacrosse championship. Lo and behold, I watched the rerun yesterday of it and keep thinking we're going to win at the end, but Boston College won. But talk to us a little bit about Northwestern lacrosse program.
Well, they've done an amazing job. The program has grown over the years. It's one of the premier women's lacrosse programs in the country, and they've done a spectacular job. The field that they play on right there on the lake shore is really a great environment to watch live sports. And yes, they played phenomenal this year. They had a great season, and that's part of the beauty of sports. You get to that final stage and you're surprised by the outcome. So you don't know the ending. And that was really a great ending. It was a great game. Unfortunately for us Wildcats, we didn't get the W, but we're wishing all the athletes the best and looking forward to another exciting season next year.
Well, back when you were playing football at Northwestern, you didn't get paid. What's the deal with these new NC2A rules and a court decision that is going to change everything, it looks like?
Well, yes, I'm a big advocate of power to the players, giving them, compensation for the work and time and the effort that they're putting in. They are student athletes, and the student part is still a big part of that, but they're generating an enormous amount of revenue for the schools, and they should be sharing in that. So I'm a huge believer in the power of that and the importance of that. But I do also recognize there are certain logistical issues as you begin to have some institutions being able to pay players and other ones being a little bit on the margins, not being able to pay at that same rate. So it's going to slowly over time start to create more of an imbalance in sports throughout the college level. But that's why it's really important that the NCAA be involved to make sure that everything is as smooth and safe as possible, rewarding the players and also making sure that the institutions are set up for success in the long run.
I've been watching sports on TV, and I did get to watch the Prefontaine events up there in Oregon. And
Track and field,
been there once before at the old field. It's a whole new setup they've got in Eugene.
Yes.
But, this Olympic trials are coming up, and the Olympics are not too far off. What do you got to share on that?
Well, I grew up doing track and field. I love track and field. It's so much fun. It's a great sport environment. I wish it was more embraced by the fans, the spectators, but it has at times, and certainly at the Olympic time. So this is the time for us track and field advocates to get out and cheer on our United States athletes, as well as from the other countries that we love and want to support. And this is a really exciting time because it is 8 weeks away from the Olympics. So There are a lot of really interesting storylines that are developing, some really great athletes and teams. So just get ready for some fun this summer.
Adam, you're a football guy too, as well as track and field. What do you got on the football draft? I know the Bears came away with the #1 pick. I'm not
Yes.
sure what that means. What do you got on the draft?
Well, all the Chicago Bear fans should feel really good going into next year. They've got the #1 player, the #1 quarterback, the #1 future star that many people are marketing as the next generation of great players. Some people are comparing him as far as his style of play, his arm technique, his ability to deliver the ball in a variety of levels and at different spots to Patrick Mahomes. So this player, Caleb Williams, who played here at University of Southern California, USC Trojans, I had a chance to watch him during his Heisman year and then the following year where he struggled a little bit, quite frankly. But he definitely fought through it. He played well while the team did not perform at the level they were all hoping for. But he is a spectacular player. And one thing that's really sharp, what's really great for you Bears fans, is the team went out of their way to sign a lot of great players around him, as well as drafting players specifically to support this young quarterback. It is something that happens in the NFL now. When these young quarterbacks come in, they really, the ownership, the management of the teams want these young players to play right away. And the reason is it has to do with the money, the pay structure. Years ago, the union agreed to allow rookies coming in to be paid less than veteran players. And as a result, these quarterbacks on rookie deals create a great budget situation for a team. They're spending less on a quarterback so they can spend more on their offensive linemen and their wide receivers and their defense. So that's why a lot of teams really try to get these top young quarterbacks. And then if that quarterback hits, sign them for long term. And that's what the Chiefs did with Mahomes. And the Bears are definitely going to be hoping for that with Williams.
Well, let's hope so. I did like Fields. I wanted to keep him, but I understand the deal here. Okay, I assume that you've been watching a lot of basketball. The playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
By the time this airs, we'll know more. But right now, it's
We know.
it's three up on each in the two contenders in the East and the West. Fill us in what you think's going on.
Well, it has been a great NBA playoffs. Right now, in the finals of the Eastern and Western conferences, it does seem to be blowouts in both cases. The Boston Celtics are up 3-0. The Dallas Mavericks are up 3-0. And for you casual basketball fans, NBA fans out there, you should know that no team has ever been down 3 games and come back and won the series. So you can almost guarantee that it's going to be Boston versus Dallas. When you're watching this show next weekend, it's still a couple more days before they actually play their first game. They backload the start of the finals because the anticipation is these Eastern and Western Conference series will go long, but it doesn't look to be the case. Women's basketball, of course, is creating a lot of amazing drama right now. You have this sensational player from college, Caitlin Clark. We've talked about her on this series of sports talks here on Live from the Heartland before. Great player. She is a white player, and some people feel that there's a certain amount of audience that embraces that, wants to see her succeed. Some people find that controversial, but I think it's fantastic. It's great when there's a player who fans identify with, connect with, want to see do well, because it lifts all things in the sport. And yes, there's no doubt about it. There's a lot of great players in women's basketball right now. So as a result, the entire sport is doing well. That's really exciting to see how it's developing. And one last thing for those Chicago fans out there, the Chicago Sky are one of the top up-and-coming teams. They look amazing. I expect great things for them. I'm a big fan of Angel Reese. I think she's a terrific player and has a great future ahead of her.
I sure wish we could watch it on TV more. I'm having a hard time. Like I had a hard time finding the Northwestern.
Yes.
I had a hard time finding the Sky. Okay, now for the finale here, Adam James.
Yes, sir.
What I would like you to do is to give our listeners, our viewers, a little bit of some health and fitness and well-being tips. What do you got today?
Terrific. Thank you so much. Yes, as many of you know, I'm a health advocate. I'm a executive with the National College of Exercise Professionals, and I have a martial arts organization, Rainbow Warrior Martial Arts. Strong believer in the power of health and fitness. Highly recommend people embrace that, engage in that. We've talked about this on the show many times. As much fun as it is to watch sports, it's even more fun to play them and to get engaged, get involved. So I highly recommend people get out there and do it. My latest fitness tip that I shared with the country club where I'm a personal trainer, the North Ranch Country Club in Westlake Village, California, I gave a fitness tip called proper posture workout. And the idea is that many people are having issues with their posture. And as a result, they are experiencing health and fitness challenges. And so part of my message is one of the most important things you can do for your health is focus on posture. Posture involves, of course, standing up straight, sitting up straight, holding yourself with that really good postural position, shoulders back, head in alignment. Your core is tight, your abs are tight. And there's a muscle deep inside there called the transverse abdominals. The transverse abdominals is kind of like a weight belt that you're already wearing. A lot of guys like to wear that weight belt in the weight room. You actually have one on right now. And you have to tighten it up. You have to engage it. And the way you do that is by breathing out from your diaphragm. When you contract your diaphragm, you're actually contracting your TVA, transverse abdominals. So part of my message to everybody out there is to exercise with good posture. If you hold yourself in good posture while you're exercising, you're developing a muscle memory, an endurance of your musculature to hold yourself in good posture at all times. Another thing that's really important to know about working out with good posture is that we tend to push more than pull when we exercise, especially a lot of guys. A lot of bench press and push-ups and the flies and all that. What it's doing is rounding your shoulders. And what we really want to do is do more pulling for our workouts. The more you do those pulls, one of the best ones is a standing shoulder row, not a seated row, but a standing one. And that's another one of my tips when it comes to posture workouts. Is part of the reason why people are experiencing poor posture is because we sit a lot. Modern technology has many wonderful things. There was a time you'd have to go out and get the horse and hitch him up, and then you can go into town. Nowadays, just walk to the car, turn a key, push a button. But no doubt about it, we're becoming more and more deconditioned as a society. So a major part of that is that we sit all the time. So I highly advocate that if you sit at your job and you sit at home when you get off work, and you sit when you go from work to home, the last thing you should do when you work out is, Okay, so last thing when it comes to posture workout, the last thing is the core. You're making sure that you're working your core. And core is more than just doing a bunch of crunches. You're going to want to get on a stability ball and get on the mat, get on the floor, doing those bridges. Holding your body in a bridge position is what creates core challenge, balance, structural challenge, so you can condition your spine, the muscles around your spine, to be strong and have endurance.
Adam James, thank you very much. I'll be in touch. It's always good to talk to you. Adam and I do talk on a family Zoom most Sundays, and that's been great. And it's led to him coming on live from the Heartland. So I want to thank Adam. I want to thank Dave Specter. And I want to thank Nicholas Barron, our three guests today. You can watch us online. You can get us on podcasts. All that information is at the top of the show. I want to thank our producers, Lynn Orman, Katie Hogan, Tom Clark, our engineer, Hal James. And it's a rough world out there. I want you to all do good in the world, because what you do, what I do, what we all do together is going to make a difference. We have to keep at it over and over and over, onward through the thick and the thin toward a better world. See you next week.